On today's episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast, we're going to be talking to you about compensation options within the Tennessee Realtor Forms Library. We're going to be pointing out to you the exact ways that the state of Tennessee has told us as realtors and as consumers how we need to handle compensation. Hang on, y'all. This is going to be a good one. Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Elite Realty Group Podcast, where we bring you the most up-to-date, relevant real estate information you're going to find anywhere on the planet. You get it right here from your friends at Elite Realty Group in Morristown, Tennessee. Today, we're diving into a topic that's pretty much a hot topic across the state of Tennessee, and that's compensation options. How are agents getting paid? How do we need to write it up? What do consumers need to know? How's all this working since this National Association of Realtors rule change that happened mid-2024? I am your host, Mike Elkins with Elite Realty Group. Got my co-host, Dave Elkins, also with Elite Realty Group. We're here to discuss this in detail for your listening and viewing pleasure. How are you, my friend?
Doing good, doing good. This is going to be a good one today.
I think it's going to be a really good one because there are literally, I don't know, I'm not even going to put a number on it, but there are a ton of ways that this has been, I'm going to say, interpreted.
Yes.
I'm going to say practiced throughout at least our area here. We're in East Tennessee, and it kind of seems like, I don't know. I'm going to say everybody's kind of doing what everybody wants to do.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like people just said, you know what, we're going to do it this way. We could care less what is said and what is the right way. We're just going to do it this way.
Right.
So,
and it's
kind of aggravating right now.
Well, it's made, I think, for a lot of confusion in the marketplace involving consumers, involving realtors, involving firms, title companies, mortgage people, because you see contracts that are written so many different ways. Now, let's set the stage for what we're kind of talking about. Let's go back for just a moment. But in mid-2024, there was a rulemaking came out, which we did a whole entire podcast on this, but I just want to bring us up to speed. There was a rule came out that said compensation options, and a lot of times that's called commission, but we're going to try to be politically correct here today and call it compensation.
Right.
Those options, they used to be able to be on the MLS, which is the platform where all the agents put all the listings that they get, and they, other agents can see that. Compensation used to be able to be within the MLS.
Right. Yeah. You knew what it was.
It was set
going into it. Yeah.
Sure. And the rule came down that could no longer be done that way anymore. Set off just a chain of events that started happening at that period of time.
Yeah, right.
Leads us up to today. There's been guidance that has been sent down from the national to the state to our locals weighed in on this. But it still seems like people's doing this a whole lot of different ways. For consumers, they're wondering, okay, what's this mean for me?
Right.
Like, how do I mean, I know realtors get paid, but how's it come? Where does it come from? Am I responsible for it? And now that it's not published on the MLS anymore, that doesn't mean that compensation has went away. It doesn't mean it's not negotiable. None of those things are true. It just means that we've got to communicate a little bit more with each other in the proper way. And so everybody is on the same page, which is what is happening.
Right.
And that's realtor communication, that's realtor to client communication, client to realtor communication, all that weighs in on it.
Yep.
But what we're going to break down today is what is the right way to do it? Like, how has the state of Tennessee, we're not going to tell you what our take is on this.
We are not giving our opinion.
No.
This is straight from the horse's mouth.
This is what the state has told us as far as this is how compensation is handled, and this is who's got to know about it and who don't.
Right.
Which is pretty much everybody, okay? Let's just go ahead and throw that out there. Nothing can be hidden.
Right.
It's not that we've got this open door to kind of just do what we want to do.
Yeah.
the rule was in the form of clear cooperation.
That's what I'm going to say. Transparency
Yes.
was the whole issue here.
Absolutely.
Okay? Keep that in mind as we're going through what we're going through.
Yes.
The whole reason behind this is they wanted clear transparency.
Absolutely.
There was nothing hidden at all. It was all laid out on the table.
Right.
So keep that in mind.
And the accusation was that realtors were getting paid and people didn't know who was getting what.
Right.
So Dave said, now we got to disclose everything. I can remember back in my real estate class many moons ago that, the teacher of the class told us, one thing you need to always remember is disclose. And when you think you've disclosed, disclose it again.
A little bit more.
And put it out there. That way there's no, you can't really be accused of not being transparent.
Right.
So we're going to look at with you today 3 options. So the state of Tennessee has told us there's 3 ways that compensation and how it's handled needs to be done by using the state of Tennessee realtor forms that they provide for us. Now, if you're out there and you don't use these forms, maybe you're going to do it different than this. I don't know. I'm not even going to try to go down that rabbit hole.
Right.
I'm going to talk to you today about what they've told us and how we as agents use that on our forms, and also how and when and where we disclose this and how the client knows about it.
Right.
That's the important thing, y'all, is the client. They got to know about this.
Let's remember that.
They have to know about this. So we're going to go through those 3 options today. It's hard to tell what kind of conversation we're getting ready to get into, but hold on, because here we go. So let's go with option 1 first, okay?
Okay.
Option 1, which is probably the most, what I'm going to call, easiest way for compensation to be handled, okay? And that is, you have a home that's listed for sale, and in that home, you have a seller and you have a listing agent. And when they have had their appointment with that listing agent, they have said, you know what? As far as compensation goes, me as the seller, I'm going to compensate you as my listing agent, and I'm only going to compensate you. Right. That's what I'm going to do. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm not worried about nobody else. I will compensate you.
Right.
Then you have a buyer enter the scene and a buyer's agent enter the scene. And that buyer and that buyer's agent has a buyer's representation agreement that before we go show property, we have with all of our buyers. Right. And the buyer says, you know what, when we're covering compensation within that agreement, they say, you know what, I am going to pay you. We're not going to talk percentages today because we don't want to be accused of anything. Right. But I'm going to negotiate with you to pay you X amount of compensation. Right. I'm not worried about if anybody else is paying you. I don't want anybody else to pay you. You're working for me. I will pay you the agreed upon total that we've put upon this buyer's representation agreement. So option 1 is you have a listing agreement and a listing agent. That compensation is negotiated between those 2 parties. The listing agent agrees to pay, or the seller agrees to pay the listing agent a percentage. They pay them, nobody else. Buyer's agent has a buyer. Buyer says, I'll pay you, not looking for compensation from anybody else. So listing agent gets compensated from the seller. Buyer's agent gets compensated from the buyer. That is option 1. Those are both compensations handled on the appropriate agreement, which would be with a listing agent and the seller. That would be handled on a listing agreement. With a buyer and a buyer's agent, that would be handled on a buyer's representation agreement. Yeah. Pretty straightforward. It's disclosed. Everybody signs. Everybody knows. Each party takes care of itself.
That is full transparency.
100%.
Okay. Now, I want to add here before we move on.
Go with that.
If you are listening to this and you are a seller, okay, although that is full transparency,
sure,
you really need to consider that is the way you want to handle it, okay? Because
absolutely,
the majority of the time, you're going to get your buyer from an outside agent.
A lot of times that happens.
So offering a buyer's agent compensation is a great thing.
Can be very beneficial.
Really helps you.
It can be very beneficial. But in the name of everything else, compensation is always negotiable.
Right.
But let's go ahead and go down this hole here, okay? Because it's getting ready to come up. but the compensation is negotiated at that listing with that listing agent.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever is agreed upon at that point in time, that's where you negotiate that compensation with your agent. Negotiate that out. It is negotiable. It is negotiable.
Compensation 100% is negotiable.
100% negotiable.
Once it's put onto that contract.
But when it goes on that contract, that's what I was going with.
The law.
That's where we go with. You know what I'm saying? Whatever you negotiate at that point, that's what it is. Okay. Yeah. So option one, let's stay on track here. Option one is seller and the listing agent, they pay them. Buyer's representation, they pay them. That's option one.
Pretty straightforward.
Pretty easy. All right. Now let's go to option two. Mm-hmm. Okay. Option two. Now I will remind you that is watching and listening to this, it's going to be popping up on your screen if you're watching this on a video. If you're listening to it on a podcast, go watch this video on YouTube, because this is not our take on this. We are going to be putting on your screen the outline to how the state of Tennessee has told us to handle compensation. Right. Here we go. Option two. Okay. Option two is there is what is called cooperating compensation. Mm-hmm. Okay. What happens at this point in time is with cooperating compensation is the listing agent and the seller, they negotiate compensation, same as we just talked about in option one. Mm-hmm. But in that negotiation of that listing, the seller decides to do what you just said. I think it's a good idea if we offer to a buyer's agent cooperating compensation, meaning if an agent brings a buyer, we're going to pay them X amount of dollars for them to bring a buyer to this house.
Right.
That compensation between the listing agent and the seller is negotiated at the listing appointment. And if a seller thinks that it is a good idea to offer cooperating compensation, that amount is put on the listing agreement.
Yes.
Okay? That gives the listing agreement now the opportunity and authorization to, when a buyer's agent asks a question, are you offering cooperating compensation? It gives the listing agent the opportunity and the ability and the authorization to say, yes, it is
blank.
There it is. Yeah. Whatever you negotiated. Right. Okay? Whatever you negotiated.
Right.
That's how that's handled. Okay? Yes. That's cooperating compensation. Now let's put this into play. Okay, because here's where I think we're going to go on one. Okay. You have to understand this, and I think this is probably the missed point by a lot of people. You are either offering cooperating compensation or you're not.
Or you're not. It's that simple. You either are or you are not.
It's on the listing agreement that you are or you aren't. Okay. Now let me cut off and get to a point which we'll get to here in option 3. But if you are offering cooperating compensation, you put it on the listing agreement what the seller has authorized you to offer.
Yeah.
Okay. It's cut and dry.
Right.
It is cut and dry at that point.
Again, we're talking about Tennessee contracts. There's 2 blanks here. Okay. It is X dollar amount. There's a blank dollar amount. Or there's a blank percentage.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not and or. It's not could be. It's either this or this.
Right.
That easy.
And so when you look at that, you either kind of are or you're not. Now let's go into play and how a contract is going to come into play here. Because we still, as agents, we have buyer's representation, right? We talked about that in option 1.
Right.
A buyer is going to negotiate with a buyer's agent compensation.
Right.
Okay. But the buyer's representation agreement also states, as long as the buyer is in agreement with this, they're going to, have the compensation between them and their buyer's agent. But it also states that the buyer is giving the buyer's agent authorization to negotiate compensation, but to get it from either the selling agent or the seller.
Right.
Which it comes back to here. If there's cooperating compensation, we're probably going to need to get that from the seller, right? You're offering it. Right. Why wouldn't we take it? Right? You're offering it. The confusion now comes in about how do we write this up? Mm-hmm. Okay. How is it put out there? Okay. Right. Let me go back to this buyer's representation agreement first. Okay. When on that buyer's representation agreement, it states, and on your screen right now for your eyes to see, that whatever, and if a buyer's agent negotiates that compensation, mm-hmm. the buyer will be fully transparent again. Yep. That amount that is negotiated will be disclosed to that buyer so they know my buyer's agent is making this.
I'm reading it straight. Here we go. This is section B here, line 47, compensation from seller. Buyer authorizes broker to negotiate with seller and or the seller's agent for the fee, yep. the payment of which shall be fully disclosed
Absolutely.
To the buyer.
Absolutely.
So if you are the buyer's agent, we have to be able to disclose
yes.
exactly to that buyer
yes.
what exactly we are making, a dollar amount or a percentage.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Now,
straight from it.
This is what the state has told us about if cooperating compensation is being offered. So we've kind of outlined that you're either offering it or you're not. Mm-hmm. It's one of the two. Okay. Yep. When that question's asked, you're either offering it or not. Now, you can say it's negotiable. But if you say it's negotiable, the answer then is no, you're not offering it.
Right.
Okay. You didn't put anything on your listing agreement. Okay. Then that means you're not offering it. If you put a figure on that listing agreement, okay, on line 68, if you put a percentage or whatever you put in there, then you're offering it, and that's what you're offering.
And that is the amount. Okay. That part is not negotiable.
Sure.
That is what your seller has authorized you to give to the buying agent.
Great point.
You are not responsible for negotiating that side of it. Okay. That's already been negotiated upon with you and your seller.
Sure. So let's look at what the state says. Okay. On your screens now, you see literally option 2, cooperating compensation. Look at the third paragraph. Okay. Look at the third paragraph. The third paragraph says if cooperating compensation is being offered by a listing agent based on their agreement with the seller, what we've just outlined, mm-hmm. then RF101, which is a compensation agreement, should be completed by the listing agent and the selling agent, reflecting the amount agreed upon. Okay? Yeah. If this amount is sufficient for the parties, okay, meaning everybody involved, we've disclosed it. We've did what the buyer's representation agreement says. We've did what the listing agreement says we can do. If this amount, back to paragraph 3, is sufficient for the parties, there is no need to also address compensation within the purchase and sale agreement. Yeah. Okay? Here's what we've got going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Here we go.
We've got people that are calling and asking the question, are you offering cooperating compensation? And the listing agent saying, yes, it's this amount.
Yep.
Here's a compensation agreement to show you I'm not just pulling your chain here. Right. I'm not just making this up. I'm not acting as a rogue person, but my seller has authorized me to do this. Here's a compensation agreement. Both parties sign what I am authorized to give to you.
Yep.
Okay? You get that agreement. That is an agreement, standalone agreement, okay, between the buyer's agent and the selling agent. Both parties have been authorized to do it.
Yep.
The buyer's agent on the buyer's representation agreement, the listing agent on the seller on the listing agreement. They've all been authorized to do that. Let's put it in writing. Let's disclose it. Let's be transparent.
Yep.
And that compensation agreement is done.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get the offer. Okay, here comes the offer through. And on the offer, In special stipulations, here is compensation written on the purchase and sale agreement. Mm-hmm. This paragraph 3 just told us.
There is no need to also address compensation within the purchase and sale agreement if those amounts are agreed upon.
Sure.
Okay, so to me, this is me.
If it's agreeable.
If it's agreeable, if the seller is offering enough compensation that the buying agent doesn't need to ask for any more, then you don't have to address it on the offer. Okay, you don't have to.
Now, paragraph 4 says, if the amount of cooperating compensation being offered is not satisfactory to the buyer, and the buyer would like the selling agent to be compensated at a higher amount, to be able to afford the property, the buyer can ask the seller to compensate buyer's agent an additional amount within the purchase and sale agreement. The compensation agreement and purchase and sale agreement will be added together at closing to get the total amount paid to the buyer's agent. Mm-hmm. So it's only added if the amount is not sufficient enough to get what the buyer's agent wants. If the buyer's agent is okay with accepting the amount that the seller is offering for cooperating compensation, it does not need to be on that purchase and sale agreement. May I explain more?
Yes.
Here's what you have, okay? If you have a compensation agreement that authorizes and both parties have signed for an amount, mm-hmm. okay, that's a binding contract agreement between those two parties.
Yep.
The compensation agreement is the parties of the agents, okay? Right. I'm going to make it kind of simple. Right. That's the parties of the agent. If that compensation is also listed on the purchase and sale agreement, now we bring other people into this.
Yeah.
That's a total separate agreement.
Now we're asking from the seller.
Sure.
Okay.
Now we're getting from the seller whatever's on that agreement. Right. So they're literally on the hook for the compensation agreement from the...
Hear that, agents?
You've got that compensation agreement that satisfies it. If it's on the offer also, there's 2 fees owed. And it states that on here. It literally talked about that. We just read it. You just seen it. Mm-hmm. So if it's agreeable, guys, you don't have to do it again.
Right.
You don't have to do it again.
Right.
You've already took care of it. There's no need to, redo it. Right. And if you redo it, they're on the hook for both.
Right.
The compensation agreement is what you're authorized per the listing agreement to offer. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to pay that amount. Mm-hmm. If it's a sign, it's contract.
Yep.
You have to pay that. Then the seller is paying this. We're seeing a lot of people on these offers that are doing the compensation agreement, which I think is the way to go, especially if cooperating compensation is there, it's sufficient. Do it. Mm-hmm. Like, that's easy. Put it on there. But you're seeing a lot of people doing the compensation agreement, which is that contract between those parties. Mm-hmm. And they're putting the same amount on the purchase and sale agreement.
Right.
That's double. Okay.
Yes,
that's double.
To pay that twice.
You don't want to do that. Okay.
No.
You do not want to do that.
No.
What else you got to add to that? I mean,
well, here's what I'm saying. Like this, to me, there's 2 ways. We just talked about one right there. Is that you're call? I'm just saying this is what we see a lot. We are calling agents to get permission to go look at the house, and also to ask the question: is the seller offering?
Sure.
Okay, we need to know that, because going back to that buyer's rep, we have to be able to tell our buyer,
yes,
are you paying
it's
or
disclosed.
Are you not?
Yes.
Okay. So we're asking that question. And so the answer that we're getting most of the time is yes, the seller is offering compensation. Okay. And most people are telling us they are offering X percent.
Right.
Okay. And then when we send the offer, we do the compensation agreement, we send the offer, they say they are not using a compensation agreement, but for us to put it on the offer.
Right.
Well, at that point, you are not offering compensation. You know what I mean? You
Yeah,
cannot say, if you say yes, you are offering compensation, then there has to be a number on that contract.
Sure.
Okay?
Yes.
but it's not negotiable.
Right.
That is the amount. Okay.
Yes.
So compensation agreements, I told people this. We have been using compensation agreements for years.
Mm-hmm.
For years we've been doing it. It's still the form that is needed when we are negotiating our compensation.
Sure.
Unless it is not the sufficient amount.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just, again, I think the confusion comes. I really do. I think the confusion is at the point you're either doing it or you're not. Okay.
Right.
If you are offering, if you've put it on your contract, you are authorized to do it, then you are offering it.
Yes.
If you put 0 in that blank on your contract, then you are not offering it.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
It's no, I'm not. Okay.
Yes.
That doesn't stop anything from being done. A buyer can still ask. Okay. We're going to get to that in option 3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But if you've got it, you've got it. If you don't, you don't. That's the confusion.
Right.
It's not, yes, it's 3. Whoop. It's a percentage.
Right.
It's not, yes, it's a percentage.
If.
But that's negotiable.
Right.
Okay. It depends on what the offer is.
I'll say we've heard people say that a lot. Yes, my seller is offering blank percent if you give us a good offer.
Yeah.
It don't say that on your listing agreement.
No.
It don't say that. It says that the seller is offering
Correct.
the blank.
Correct.
That you just told me about.
Correct.
It don't say anything about what I have to do to get that.
Right. Right.
I have to give you an offer, and if you accept it, that's what you're paying me.
Correct. So I think if we pick up the point, we either are or we are not, it clarifies a lot of things. Mm-hmm. Now, if you are, handle it on a compensation agreement. That's so easy.
Again,
handle it on a compensation agreement.
From the horse's mouth.
Yes.
Unless it's not enough.
Right.
So, for instance, if you had blank percent on your buyer's rep with your buyer,
mm-hmm.
and the amount that they are offering you is less than, mm-hmm. and you need it to be what you put on your buyer's rep,
right?
Then you would do the compensation agreement for the first blank. This is hard to do without using numbers.
Yeah.
And then on the purchase and sale agreement, you would write the additional,
mm-hmm. whatever
that is,
to make up the difference.
Correct. Okay, but it's not yes here and yes there.
Right.
It's not, or you're going to end up getting bit, and you're going to pay your side, and you are going to cost your seller more money.
Correct.
Because now they're going to have to pay it again.
Yeah. Because you have to go back and remember the seller has agreed on their listing agreement. Mm-hmm. They've agreed to a total
compensation of blank,
and then they've agreed to a cooperating.
They have offered to split,
which is part of the total.
Yep.
Okay, we know that.
Right.
On Tennessee, it's part of the total. It's not in addition to.
Right.
It's part of the total. But they've got a contract over there for that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you've went out and said, "Oh yeah, I'll give you this cooperating. Here it is on a compensation agreement." Right. But you're still coming back from us and asking us to put it on the contract too. You don't have to do that.
No.
Okay, you do not have to do that. Like you said, unless it's not enough.
Right.
Clear. And that's not what we're thinking.
Right.
That's what the state's told us to do. Okay.
Right.
I think it would clarify it up though. I really go back to you either are or you are not.
Transparency. Okay? Keep it in mind. You either are or you are not. And if you are, this is the amount.
Correct.
That easy.
So option 2 is cooperating compensation, means you are. Okay. Now here's option 3. Okay. Option 1, everybody's taking care of themselves. Mm-hmm. Option 2 is there is cooperating compensation, mm-hmm. which is handled on a compensation agreement, and any additional monies that the buyer may want to pay their agent can be handled on the offer if it needs to be, only the additional. And then we've got option 3. Option 3 is, see it on your screen at this time, seller to compensate buyer's agent directly at closing. Okay. Now look at what this says. Okay. This goes back to you are or you are not. This says if a seller does not wish to offer cooperating compensation, they can enter 0 in the blank on line 68 of the listing agreement. Okay. Mm-hmm. If the buyer would like the seller to compensate the buyer's agent at closing, they may enter the special stipulation language provided on lines 286 to 287 of the RF101. This is a negotiable item between the seller and the buyer.
Right.
It's kind of like seller expenses and buyer expenses, which a lot of people will call closing costs. We negotiate that a lot of times in a purchase and sale agreement.
Right.
If a seller is not offering compensation, means they've put zero in the blank, they are not, then it can be put in special stipulations using the appropriate language, but it is then negotiable. Not us agents are negotiating that.
Right.
It's being negotiated between the seller and the buyer. The buyer's wanting to get the compensation paid by the seller for their buyer's agent. That's when it's put in special stipulations.
Right.
If the answer is no, or if the amount offered is not sufficient for the buyer.
Yep.
But I think we have to go back to, as agents all around the board here, this is a buyer's call. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be the ones deciding, because we've already got a buyer's agreement in place. And so as a buyer's agent and a buyer, they negotiated that before they ever went and saw the property. So you know what I'm saying? If an agent is saying, hey, you owe me this amount, and a buyer don't have it, they may come and ask the seller to do it.
Right.
That's when it's put in special stipulations.
Right.
That to me is so clear, because the states put it to us in writing and said, this is how you do it.
Right.
We've been accused, man, of some god-awful stuff, you know, of being this and being that. And agents are making it harder just because I think a lot of people don't understand the three options and the ways that we need to handle compensation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think a lot of times what I'm thinking is agents are thinking that the compensation is negotiable between themselves and the buying agent. Okay.
I think you're so right.
It's nothing to do with us.
Right.
Okay.
Both parties have already negotiated.
Both parties have negotiated.
Yeah, you've done it.
If I'm a buyer's agent, I have to have my buyer's rep in place with my buyer prior to going and looking at any properties.
Correct.
Okay. When you get the listing as the listing agent, you are negotiating
have it in writing,
the commission at that point in time that you are receiving.
Correct.
And if you are offering any.
Correct.
But so many times I think that the listing agents are thinking, okay, well, I've got it listed for X, but I'm going to negotiate that buyer's agent commission down from what I've been agreed to pay over here.
Right.
They are trying to negotiate that so that either maybe they might give that back to their seller, but there's probably a better chance that might be an extra percent or a 0.5% that they can stick in their pocket.
I think that's what a lot of people think.
Okay, that is not negotiable.
Right.
If your seller tells you to give X% or dollar amount to the buying agent, that's what you give.
Yes.
That is exactly what you give. That is not negotiable.
Yes. And, you know, I encourage agents, I encourage brokers, I encourage entire offices. You know, what we've put up on the screen, I'm literally holding it in my hand right here. You can literally see it right here. There it is on your screen. Like, this is what the state of Tennessee has sent to us all.
Every brokerage in the Tennessee's got
this to us all. And for our profession's sake, like, we need to get on the same page.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we need to get on the same page. Do what the people have told us to do. Like, just do this, and we're all on the same page, you know. And you've got companies that are out there that we try to do these deals with, and you call, and yeah, I'm offering compensation, and it's this amount.
Yeah. You
send over the compensation agreement, and they go, you know what? We're not using that.
We ain't using that for them.
And I'm thinking, like, wait a minute. Like, the state told us to do this. Like, this is how they told us to do this.
Yes, right there.
And then you've got companies that are the exact opposite of that. They're like, they won't use compensation agreement, and they don't want it on the contract. Like, if you can't take me for my word, bro, like, we ain't gonna get a deal. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Everything is in the form. It's in transparency. We all have duties to our clients.
Yeah.
And so we've got to go by those duties, y'all. Like, it can't just be, what we think is the best. There's attorneys and people again on these committees that our state has provided for us, and they've tried to give us the best guidance that they can give us. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm reading these that you've seen on your screen today. That's clear, like it's so clear, and it covers all of the bases, which in turn covers us as agents of the duties that we have as realtors. We just need to do that. I think if we all would get on the same page. So I encourage everybody, if you've listened to this point and you're like, hey, I ain't never seen that, I'd love to get my hands on it. You connect with us through whatever platform you've got. I keep this stuff because we literally just had a deal the other day that we had to literally send this over because we got accused of being one of those people. Oh, you're going to be one of those people.
Yeah.
I'm not being nobody no different than what they've told us to do.
Right.
And here you go. Read it for yourself.
Yep.
And once they figured out we were one of those people, guess what? They became one of those people too. You know what I mean? But I don't think nobody's trying to do nothing crazy here.
No.
I just think
again,
there's a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I don't think nobody's trying to do anything wrong. I just think that a lot of people's getting bad information.
Yes.
And again, they're not just looking at what they are and how they are telling us to handle these.
Sure.
And they're trying to come up with their own scenarios in their mind.
Right.
Like we tell people this all the time, man. Don't try to reinvent the wheel yourself. They are telling us how to do it.
Right.
So do it this way. Yeah. Again, I go back to, it's supposed to be transparent.
Right.
Okay. Some of the ways that some people are trying to handle stuff, whether you're wanting to look that way or not, it's making you look as agents, and we are professionals. Our whole thing, we are all in the same boat. We are professionals.
Yes.
And if you are trying to look that way or not, when you are doing stuff, sometimes the way we're doing it, it don't look good, okay?
Right.
And when it don't look good on you, it don't look good on me.
Yes.
When I go back and I can't tell my buyer, well, this is what they said, okay? They said they could pay this, but we're going to have to try to negotiate that.
Yeah, and
that makes us look bad.
That's what I was going to say. What happens is you do get an answer on the front side of, we're offering it. And then you try to do the compensation agreement and nobody will do it. And so you tell your buyer, well, they're offering this, and you ended up, forsaking the compensation agreement because you're one of those people. And you put it in the offer, and then you get a counter offer back. And you know what happened? They changed the compensation.
Yep.
And the buyer then looks at you like you're some kind of liar. Because I thought you told me they told you they was going to give you this. Right. Now I'm going to have to do it.
Now you want me to pay you.
It's our profession, y'all.
Yeah.
Like you hit the nail on the head, man. This is our profession. We're professional people. Like, we got to protect our turf. That's not by collaborating and getting in a corner and doing something crazy. That's just being a pro, doing it right.
Do it right.
You know what I mean? It's our profession. We need to take care of it. And so, again, I'd love to discuss this with anybody that would want to discuss this. Not that, again, this isn't the Elite Realty Group way. This is the way we do it. Okay. Right. Let me be clear there. We do it like this because that's what the state told us to do. But I would love to have, conversations with people about what you're seeing and the obstacles that you're overcoming. Because again, at the end of the day, man, we got to all work together and serve the public, the clients that we have, that we've been blessed to be able to do the greatest profession in the entire world. We've all got to make it and keep it the best profession in the entire world. Right. Because the more muddy the water gets on this, the more complaints, the more people start, stirring the stink. These people want to change the whole way we do stuff, y'all.
True.
We got to get on the page. We got to get on the same page. So again, that's not our take on it.
Yeah.
That's what the state, that's the guidelines, that's the ways they've told us we need to handle conversation.
And I'm going to say this because, again, we know that there's a lot of people in a lot of different states that watch and listen to this podcast. Sure. So, check with if you haven't seen anything official, I would say your state has probably put out some kind of official something on how you guys should be handling this. So check. I think a lot of times people just take somebody else's word.
Yeah.
This is the way so-and-so said we're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
Make sure that we're doing it the right way. That's the whole, this whole thing in a nutshell that we've been saying is just make sure, again, this is not our opinion. Mm-hmm. Because believe me, if I had an opinion, I would do it differently than this, okay? Yeah. I would have done everything a lot different than what we're doing right now.
Correct.
This is not an opinion.
Correct.
This is the way they have advised us to handle this.
Absolutely.
That's what we have to do. Okay?
Absolutely.
When we don't, we're doing it wrong. We're doing stuff the wrong way. Say it one more time. We're supposed to be doing all this for transparency.
Yes.
You guys help it. You help us. We're helping you. I'm saying let's make it to where it's easy that we all understand it. Mm-hmm. It's easy for us to understand. It's easy for our clients to understand. That's what it's supposed to be about, is transparency for everyone.
Correct. 100%. What a way to end it. Again, you like to talk about it, chat about it. You want this information we've got. You want this papers in your own hand. Maybe you missed that email or 10 that they sent because they've sent it a lot of times.
Yeah.
But you want this information, we'd be glad to send that to you. Connect with us on whatever platform you are. Again, we just trying to put out information today to protect the profession. Yep. And that's at the end of the day what we all want to do. We appreciate your time, appreciate you listening. Hopefully you've commented, you've chimed in. We'd love to hear from you, again, on whatever platform. Make sure you watch all of these platforms, whichever one you're watching or listening to on, as we put out new content on a weekly basis. And we would love to engage and talk to you. For all of us at Elite Realty Group, we hope this has been informational to you. We hope your day's blessed. We will see you guys on one of our next podcasts of the Elite Realty Group Podcast. Have a great day, y'all.